The United States have announced new rounds of sanctions against Russia, and these sanctions are targeted towards the Russian oil and gas uh, industry or sector. They are targeted on Russian oil and gas um, companies. And the question really for me is, will these sanctions have any outcome or effect on Russia? And the answer is no. The answer is a big no. And at this stage, I think any Western imposed sanction on Russia are purely symbolic. They're purely symbolic. There's really nothing that the West now can do to hurt Russia to the point where Russia would stop this war. It's not going to happen. But on this particular instance of these sanctions, the first question would be, okay, the US is sanctioning Russia, Russian oil and gas companies. The question is, will the European Union and NATO nations stop buying Russian oil and gas? The answer is no. They will not stop buying Russian oil and gas. They are so reliant on Russian oil and gas that it is impossible for them to stop buying it. So, then what is the point of the sanctions? And then another question, will India and China, one which is the second largest economy in the world and another being the fifth largest economy in the world, will they stop buying Russian oil and gas? The answer is no. They will not stop buying Russian oil and gas. So on that front alone, that tells you that these sanctions are just purely for PR purposes. And then number two, will Europe stop buying Russian uranium? The answer is no. They are entirely dependent on Russian uranium. In fact, 50% of all uranium that gets traded in London is Russian uranium. So, no, it's not going to happen. Another question is, will the United States of America stop buying Russian uranium? The answer is absolutely not. They're not going to stop buying Russian uranium. So, and then there's the issue of the radioisotopes that I spoke about in a video before that I will link on the description below. That the West, in particularly, and the US relies on. These are radioisotopes that are only produced by a handful of countries. Some of them are only produced by Russia. Some of them are only produced by one. Russia is one of two nations in the world that produce these radioisotopes. And so the West is entirely dependent on Russia for a lot of radioactive material and nuclear materials. So the reason why I'm talking about uranium and radioisotopes is because, even though they are not oil and gas, it's because this is evidence of why the West can't win, because there's so much that Russia provides which they can't get anywhere else, that they have to get from Russia, which means that all of this talk about sanctions and all of that, it's just meaningless. Some of these products, like the radioisotopes, it's impossible for them to get them elsewhere. So you'll never hear anything about them in the media because they can't talk about them in the media. But billions of dollars are sent to Russia every year from the US and from Europe because they need many Russian products which they can't get anywhere else in the world. Which then goes to say that these sanctions, folks, it's just talk. They're meaningless, they're toothless, they're not effective. They're not going to do anything in regards to putting a dent at all in regards to this war. So, yeah. At this stage, I don't even think that there's anything at all that the United States can do, short of going to war with Russia, that can stop this war. I don't think that there's anything that anyone at this stage can do to stop this war. Unless you can convince the entire world to stop buying Russian products. entire world. And that won't happen because even the very nations that are funding Ukraine are still buying Russian products. So how are you going to convince Asia, East Europe, Africa, South America to stop buying Russian products when you yourselves continuously rely on Russian products? So this is to say that this war won't end because of your sanctions. At this stage, sanctions are just for public messaging purposes, public messaging and PR purposes. That is all now what these sanctions are, so that you can actually appear in front of American people that you are doing something by doing nothing, because you can't do anything. Russia is not like any other country in the world that you can bully. Russia is a superpower, and they have real advantages that give them advantage over the West. So there's really nothing that you can do. I'm sorry. There's nothing you can do. Deal with it.